What's up, everybody? Welcome in. We're breaking down Zulema's testimony today against Chad Daybell. She was part of the inner circle, close friend, married to Alex Cox, has all the dirt, all the tea to spill on Chad Daybell. And she is so connected to this that we also get some questions about a potential immunity deal that she got that John Pryor digs into on cross-examination. So make sure you hit that like button because we're going to jump into it today. We're going to discuss it and answer all of your questions. So all of the tea that possibly could be spilled by Zulema was Chad gave her light and dark ratings. Chad was the brains and the spiritual guidance behind the light and dark ratings. Although she said Lori and Melanie came up with zombies, she confirmed the seven gatherers, which I think kind of impeaches Melanie Gibb and some others that have acted like they didn't know what it was. Seems like it's kind of a big deal. Very weird explanations about light and dark, and Chad saying that he knows how she passed in other lives in brutal, horrible ways. Confirming that what a lot of you guys said, Melanie Pulowski was kind of going to be Lori and Chad's cash cow. Now, does that fly in the face of the insurance policies? Maybe. I don't think John Pryor really got into it that much to specifically talk about it. She got into the differences between who was light and who was dark. And that's the first clip we're going to listen to together here today.
And are there ratings provided for that family?
Yes.
Do you know who provided the ratings again?
All of these ratings were provided by Chad.
And when Chad was providing the ratings, were people in Lori's family rated as dark?
Many of them.
What about Chad's family?
All of his children were rated as light.
And his children aren't depicted on here, correct? Their rating level?
No.
She also, again, was so in this inner circle, she has like writing on, the back of receipts and papers with everybody's light and dark ranking. They documented this stuff. They shared it. JJ was light at some point, then dark. Tylee was dark. Charles Vallow was dark. All the people involved, obviously, that ended up losing their lives were dark. Eventually, Tammy was dark. Chad had access to the book of life where he knew past, present, and future of people's lives, but of course, he didn't share that with anybody else. And then they taught her how to do castings. And a lot of discussion about what castings were from her understanding from Lori and Chad, and some interesting discussion on Cross as well about castings. But let's hear her discuss it on direct.
Did Lori indicate anything to you in relation to knowledge of castings?
She said that they had been given some new information on how to do castings, and that this time that we were going to use the Cosmos to do this casting, and that's how we were going to proceed.
And when you say they, is that Chad and Lori?
Yeah, usually when she would refer to they, it would mean her and Chad had new information.
Who participated in that casting on Tammy?
It was just me and Lori.
Did you end up learning something had occurred in Idaho around the same time you were conducting the casting?
Much later, I put two and two together that was the same night that someone had attempted to shoot Tammy.
So she put two and two together. And at other points, she basically testifies that when somebody, gets the dark spirit or demon or zombie or whatever out of them, that the body dies. And yet she and other people still take part in future castings. Much, much later, she says she connected that Tammy was shot at on the same exact date and time that she did this casting, and she still does future castings. It's wild. How is she not charged? How is she not implicated? Well, we're going to talk about that. But first, what happened the night Tammy was shot at that they did this casting, and how come it didn't work?
After the casting, did you hear Lori on the phone?
Yes, she was on a phone call afterwards.
How did she appear?
She was extremely angry. She was irate. I had never seen her that upset. She was like scary angry. And she was calling whoever she was on the phone with. She was calling this person names like moron, idiot, stupid, and very, very, very angry.
And after she got off
So she's on the phone with somebody, obviously, presumably Alex Cox is what the state is getting at, saying, idiot, how did you not get this done? Connecting all the dots, obviously, to the connections they're casting. Tammy gets shot at. Somebody doesn't get the job done. And Lori's yelling at somebody on the phone for not getting the job done.
that phone call, did she say anything to you?
And
Yeah.
this was a person that was with them in it, married to Alex Cox, probably knows more than she's saying, but at least knows what she's saying, and connecting all these dots, telling us exactly what Lori and Chad are doing when all this other stuff is going on. It's not like they're at work or writing a book or doing something, digging a ditch at the graveyard or whatever. It's like, no, they're doing castings, which they believe the body will die. And these people they're doing castings on are getting shot at. And Lori's talking about somebody not getting the job done when they didn't get the job done that they wanted with somebody getting shot at that they were doing the casting of. Just connects too much to be coincidence.
Right after she hung up the phone, she said, "Idiot, can't do anything by himself."
Did you talk to Alex on October 9th of 2019?
Yes,
What were the two of you talking about?
she had I had been talking to him about getting a new car, and I had just barely got my new car, and we were talking about my new car.
Did Alex talk to you? Did you talk to Alex at all about the casting?
No,
Did he talk to you about what he'd done that night?
no.
So he was kind of keeping it close to the vest, not really telling her his involvement, if he had any, of course. That hasn't been proven in a court of law. By the way, her and Alex Cox dated for like 7 days, and I think they saw each other 3 times from getting engaged to married. Not even dated. Or sorry, to where they were engaged. Sorry, 7 days from where they started dating to when they were engaged. I think they saw each other 3 times. It came out on cross. So would Chad get Alex to do stuff for him? That's important as well, because that's one of the defenses is that, Chad was scared of Alex and Alex was Lori's protector and hurt other husbands. And maybe he was going to hurt Chad based on some of the circumstantial evidence we have.
And
But she knows
he was
better
there to do that.
because she was there. And what's she have to say about it? Getting somebody in the inner circle to flip on their friends is huge. And it's clear through direct and cross that she believed a lot of the same stuff that Lori and Chad believed and taught.
And how would you describe Chad and Alex's relationship?
Well, at first they didn't really have a conversation because, like, when I saw them after the conference in November of 2018, they weren't even talking at that time. But then in August of 2019, when we were at Lori's house, they were very close to each other. They were like really good friends, and they were making plans of going to Rexburg together. And after that, they were just very close.
So
Did Alex
not
believe what Chad
close,
told him?
Oh, 100,
but eventually close.
just very close.
Did Alex believe what Chad told him?
Oh, 100%.
Would Alex do what?
Alex believed what Chad told him 100%. And who would know this? His wife. Now, obviously, the state wants to beef up their relationship that they're married, of course. Husband and wife knows each other. Defense will downplay it that they actually barely knew each other. But from a jury, when you're hearing from a guy's wife and she tells you something he believes, I think you usually believe that as a juror.
What Chad asked?
Yeah, especially because he would tell him what to do through a blessing and tell him that it was Jesus Christ, the one that was telling him to do that, such as
So how would Chad manipulate Alex? Well, he would ask him to do stuff for him. Would he do it? Yes. Why? Well, because he would tell him to do stuff while he was giving him a blessing, saying this direction, or I'm telling you to do this, is from Jesus Christ our Lord. So you have to do it. It's not Chad Daybell asking, it's Jesus asking. That's what Chad would do to manipulate Alex. Again, major dots being connected by somebody in the inner circle, sinking Chad Daybell, that if this was Alex Cox or Alex Cox through Lori Vallow, everybody was looking back to Chad, and Chad would use religion and his, spiritual enlightenment and his blessings. When he gave Alex his patriarchal blessing, she said Alex was crying and he took it so seriously.
moving to Rexburg.
And did Chad give Alex quite a few blessings?
Yes.
So he would do this a lot and everything was great until Alex got a phone call one day that Tammy's body was being exhumed. And then they had another conversation, he and his wife. And let's listen to this.
And that it's really, he's always talking and joking and laughing, and he could just fill the whole entire room. And after the call, his demeanor just changed completely. He was very quiet. He was very somber. He was just to himself. And he started saying certain things to me that didn't make any sense at the time. So one of the things that he said is, I think I'm going to be their fall guy.
So after he has the conversation about Tammy's body being exhumed, again, the timeline is very important in the sequence of events. Tammy's body's being consumed, his personality changes, his demeanor changes, and he tells his wife, now he's worried he's going to be Lori and Chad's fall guy, their fall guy, not Lori's fall guy, not her fall guy, their fall guy. And the conspiracy is starting to really link up through Zulema's testimony.
And I asked him what that meant, if he could explain to me what he was saying to me, and he wouldn't say anything to me. I was very frustrated with him because he wouldn't say anything. So I would walk away, and then he would say something else, and then I would walk back into the room and try to get him to explain to me again, what do you mean by that? And he wouldn't say anything else. So one of the things he said was, I think I'm being their fall guy. And then as I was walking out of the room after he's not explaining anything to me, he said, Zulema, either I am a man of God or I am not.
So obviously he was starting to be concerned, and then he passes away, as we know, after going to Mexico, and he gets sick. Then we get to cross-examination, where he tries to hammer her credibility, asks her about a lot of the strange things that she obviously believed as well, that, including that Lori and Chad told her she could predict the weather, and she tried to do it in practice, even though she doesn't think she ever did it right or actually predicted it right. But again, I don't know if he's trying to embarrass her, show the jury she's in on this, whatever it may be. But he wanted to make sure you weren't tricked into believing this religious stuff. And then we get the big kicker of cross-examination. And a lot of people have thought about this and wondered if this was the case. I had not heard it ever confirmed, but we got it confirmed today.
What about the ability to judge people's character and matters such as that?
I believe that I have been an overly trusting person.
Okay. And when you say that you were overly trusting, you're saying that all of this discussion about religion somehow tricked you into following a certain path. Would that be fair?
Objection, Your Honor, misstates testimony, and counsel's testify.
Sustained. Okay. Is it your suggestion that in somehow Chad and Lori tricked you into believing all of these religious beliefs?
I trusted them and I believed them.
Okay. Now, as part of your cooperation in this case, were you provided any guarantees of immunity regarding any of your testimony?
Yes.
And you were granted an immunity agreement from being prosecuted for anything that you may provide to the police. Is that correct?
Yes.
So what does that make you think? The potential juror out there watching this in the chat, this is the big part. I want your opinion. How does that make you think of her testimony? Less credible, more credible? He's going to, chip away at her credibility with a couple other things, but that's the big kicker. She was granted immunity. There's two ways to look at it. Well, obviously she's not credible. She's going to do whatever she can to get these people convicted, or she was in on this and she flipped on them. She flipped first. She snitched. So what she's saying is true. She was there. She was involved in it. Maybe she didn't know. Maybe she was too trusting and too gullible, which he set up right before asking this question, but she was there. Did she know more than she was letting on? Pretty interesting. Interesting little way to set it up there for Pryor as well.
And do you recall the number of times you've spoken to law enforcement about this case?
No, I don't remember how many times.
Okay. Are you aware that on at least 4 occasions you talked to the Rexburg police in your home area of Arizona? Do you recall that?
Yes, I have spoken to law enforcement several times.
And she's talked to him a lot, and we're going to hear some of that because he wants to impeach her with some of the things that she said in some of those interviews. And to refresh her recollection, we do it outside the presence of the jury with with those statements being in opposition to some of the things that she's already testified to, this being one of them. She testifies to this in front of the jury, and then he tries to impeach her by refreshing her recollection in that one of the police interviews.
It was unsuccessful. That would mean that the demon was still in the body. You asked me 2 questions.
Okay. As part of the castings, if it was unsuccessful, would it result in the killing of the body?
It was unsuccessful. That would mean that the demon was still in the body. So
Okay.
nothing would happen.
Okay. And if the casting was successful and you were able to extract the demon from the body, what would happen to the body?
The body would die.
Okay. And is that something that Chad and Lori taught you?
Yes.
Okay. In essence, would it mean then that if they were successful in extracting a demon from the body, that in essence, they'd be killing the human body. Would that be fair?
I wouldn't be using the term killing, but it would mean that the body would die.
Was there any indication in any of the correspondence between you and Lori and Chad about killing anybody?
No,
You never discussed the topic of killing anybody. Is that correct?
no,
In fact, you never discussed the topic of casting and how it would, how the ultimate end would be the death of the body. Isn't that true?
they were teaching that if the casting was successful, then the demon would be cast out. Therefore, the body could actually die and expire.
So that's what she says, and he wants to impeach her with this testimony that she gave at an interview with law enforcement.
That was never explained. Never. I don't know. He never said that. I don't think that was ever put in
This is outside the presence of the jury to refresh her recollection.
an option or asked as an option. Actually, that's the first time I ever even thought about that could be an option. That my spirit could actually go back to the body.
So
A possibility.
So did you believe it to be that once your spirit is in limbo and the demon is in your body, in order for that demon to get out, they have to kill your body to get that demon out? Is that how you understood it?
No, because it was understood.
They
that-
wanted her to say yes to that, and it kind of sounded like she was saying yes to it on direct. That like if you were going to do a casting, you knew they were going to die, which obviously makes her look horrible too. But in this interview, she says no, it doesn't mean you have to kill the body to get the demon out, which obviously Pryor wants to put in front of the jury, and he does. We're going to listen to about another minute of this police interview. They have more exchanges during cross, which I think comes off a little better for the defense, but not enough.
The way that Chad explained it was that we would expel that demon out of the body, put a protection around the body so no other entity could come in. But they never spoke about killing the body. You see that? They only talked about expelling or throwing out or casting out the bad spirit. They never talked about actually killing the body.
Okay, so if you expel that evil spirit and you put protection around the body, and the good spirit can't come back, when the body is basically going to die, right? The expelling of it causes basically the death of the body, whether that's intentional harm to the body or just body just had a car accident, dies, or fall over from natural causes and dies. Is that what you're saying?
Mhm.
So obviously a little bit better for the defense. Didn't come off perfect. And again, the stuff about, her and Alex getting married quick or any of the weird stuff that she believes or predicting the weather or whatever. Yeah, it's strange. Yeah, it may make you side-eyed her a little bit, but it's not good for Chad Daybell. Doesn't help Chad Daybell. Overall, her testimony was horrible for Chad Daybell, and the dots she was able to connect, pull behind the curtain. What did they really believe? What were they really doing? What was happening at the same exact time that they were doing these castings and these teachings? How did the light and dark line up? Who just so happened to be light and dark? All of that fits perfectly in with the state's theory of the case and is horrible and damning for Chad Daybell. But there was one last pretty good shot at her credibility near the end of her testimony that we're going to listen to, that John Pryor was able to get into, again, in some of these recorded police interviews that the judge would let her refresh her recollection outside the presence of the jury and then come and testify about them in front of the jury. So if you see her like this, it's in front of the jury. If you see that police interview on the screen, you can know that it's outside the presence of the jury. She just listens to it and then maybe fixes her testimony, changes it. I don't know, clarifies it. But this was an interesting exchange, I thought, near the end of the day.
And whenever I'm Boise Sunday night,
Prior to that time, it appears that you've been interviewed by a number of police officers. Is that fair?
yes,
And do you have any idea how many police officers have interviewed you?
no,
Okay. You remember discussing your case with Officer Hermosillo?
Hermosillo, who was dark, if you remember, according to Chad and Lori.
in what occasion?
4/29/21 in Arizona?
Yeah, I believe that was one of the interviews I had with them.
Do you remember that interview?
Parts of it, yes.
Okay. Was there ever a time that there was a discussion about attempting to make your testimony credible?
I don't recall that.
Did somebody tell her they need to make her testimony more credible? That's pretty damning. She says, I don't recall that.
Judge, could I have a sidebar, please?
So he asks for a sidebar, tells the judge, we need to listen to this, sends the jury out, brings the recording up, and let's let her listen to this discussion. And let's find out, did somebody actually tell her that they need to make her testimony more credible? Are they going to change her testimony or coach her into what to say?
Like 2 weeks there, that there isn't much, like, it's very foggy for me. But that night specifically, there are certain things that I remember, but not all of it. And I don't remember, like, I can't put a timeline together. Like, I don't know what happened first and what happened next. I don't know which one was first and which one was second. I really don't. I've been trying to put it together, but I haven't been able to.
We've also never seen what, statements she's reported to have made, so it's,
Well, I can let you look at a copy, but so when Gilbert Police, let me just preface this. We're just trying to eliminate some of the things maybe defense for Lori and Chad are going to bring up during trial.
We're trying to limit some of the things the defense of Lori and Chad are going to bring up during the trial. That's what he says on camera.
And part of that defense could be that they try to pin this on other people, right?
Ding, ding, ding. It wasn't hard to tell. They may try to pin this stuff on other people like Alex Cox, maybe Zulema, maybe each other. So he's right about that.
So, or make you not look as credible as what you are in case you have to testify.
Mhm.
So in order for us to make you look credible and to use what you say in court, we want to kind of jump out ahead of any type of defense that they're going to bring.
In order to make you more credible or make you look more credible, I can't remember what he said, we need to jump out ahead of what the defense is going to do. Let's listen to that again.
So in order for us to make you look credible and
To make you look credible. Now, this is not in front of the jury, but in order for us to make you look credible, meaning you're not credible, but you need to look credible, we need to jump out ahead of what the defense is doing.
to use what you say in court, we want to kind of jump out ahead of any type of defense that they're going to bring you. And try to make it look like you are lying or trying to get back at them or something like that. So in going over these reports, that's kind of what we were doing to make sure that everything that you told us kind of matches what has happened, right? And so when we were going over Gilbert's reports, there's some things in there that you said that you told us about when you last talked to Chad and Lori and about when you, well, I'll just come out and ask you. You told Gilbert that you had no idea.
So there's some inconsistencies between what you're telling law enforcement, and we got to make you look more credible so the defense can't pick that stuff out. Not great. And I think that would have made her look pretty bad in front of the jury. But let's see how the exchange goes, because the judge is going to allow Pryor to ask questions about that. Now their memory's been refreshed. But let's see how this exchange goes. And you guys let me know, does this hurt her credibility in your eyes?
In terms of someone trying to make your testimony more credible, do you have a better recollection of that situation?
Yes.
And at that time, in your discussions with Officer Hermosillo, was there a discussion about attempting to make your testimony more credible?
Yes.
And was there a discussion about you making inconsistent statements to other police agencies and that Officer Hermosillo was trying to reconcile those two inconsistencies?
Yes. He was trying to reconcile.
And at that point, was it also your discussion with Officer Hermosillo that he was trying to make it so that they could minimize how a defense attorney may attack you in terms of those inconsistent statements?
Yes.
I would definitely not have said the word attack, but Pryor says the way I would, or a defense attorney, attack you, I would say highlight or point out that you have told multiple versions of the same story, that you have inconsistencies, that we would make sure the jury knew that you were not credible. I would have said something like that as opposed to use the word attack.
Was it your understanding that Officer Hermosillo was trying to put you in a position where you would testify in order that you wouldn't be as vulnerable to attack by the defense counsel?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
overruled.
Was it your understanding that Officer Hermosillo was aiding you in trying to make it so that defense counsel could not attack you about your inconsistent statements to various police agencies?
Yes.
And Officer Hermosillo again is who?
He's one of the law enforcement that interviewed me.
From the Rexburg Police Department?
Yes.
In addition, Officer Kia Kamano was there as well, is that right?
Yes.
And your attorney was there as well, right?
Yes.
Was it your understanding as part of that meeting that what you were attempting to do was to get your story straight when you had to testify in a trial of this case?
Objection, Your Honor, argumentative misstates the evidence or
Overruled.
testimony.
It's overruled.
Is it your understanding that what Officer Kia Kamano of the Rexburg Police Department, Officer Hermosillo of the Rexburg Police Department, and your lawyer and you were trying to get your story straight about all the inconsistent statements you made to various police
Objection, Your
agencies?
Honor, argumentative.
Sustained.
Move to strike.
That's sustained. I strike the question.
I would say, isn't it true they wanted to make you look credible? Because that's what they said.
Officer Hermosillo was trying to make your testimony more credible, is that right?
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
Sustained.
you had previously heard about inconsistent statements you may have made to various agencies. Is that right?
Yes,
And Officer Hermosillo talked about minimizing the impact of defense counsel in your questioning, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
Sustained.
And the purpose of that meeting was just so that you would be able to get your story straight, was it not, ma'am?
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered. Argumentative.
Sustained.
What do you understand the purpose of Officer Hermosillo telling you that he was trying to make you credible in front of a jury?
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
That was not asked, Judge.
It's overruled. You can answer the question, ma'am.
Madam Clerk, would you?
She's reading the question back to her.
my understanding was that there were some inconsistencies and he wanted to clarify them to, just like he said, to be ahead of what you're doing right now.
And the discussion was directly.
He wanted to clarify some of the inconsistencies to get ahead of what you're doing right now. She's giving him more than he's even putting in his questions, in my opinion. So what's a jury going to think about that? What do you guys think about that? Now, obviously, put out of your mind the actual video of the interview because the jury's not going to see that. But how would that exchange make you think of her credibility and whether or not her statements were coached, whether or not law enforcement or people were telling her what to say, and whether or not she felt coerced into saying whatever they wanted her to say because that's how she was going to get immunity and get off scot-free when, you know, we're saying she was involved or her husband was involved, whatever the defense is going to say. So if you're lining that up in closing argument, you can say Zulema, married to the person who did all of this, Alex Cox, said whatever the prosecution needed to say to make her look credible because they knew she was anything but credible with all of her inconsistent statements. But how did they get her to say whatever they wanted her to say? They gave her immunity. That's the way you can connect those dots in closing argument. Fascinating witness, really interesting legal aspects to this. And of course, whenever you have somebody on the inner circle flipping on their friend and snitching on them, it's obviously a huge piece of evidence and very damning, as it was in this case as well. Multiple nails put in Chad Daybell's coffin, in my opinion, with this testimony, if the jury finds it credible. And I can't wait to hear if you guys believe they will or won't. But that's all we've got for today's video. Thank you guys for joining me. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to our page. Please subscribe. Helps us out. It's fun to grow the audience and the chatters. It's always interesting when I read the chat, here and their perspectives on these cases. So you guys are the best. That's all I've got. Until next time, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast with new seasons dropping every quarter. If you have a know you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, The Lawyer You Know.